You really have to hear what this team encountered. If you stay with this account, you will understand why one survivor died years later in a lit kitchen with both doors locked, and why the other still checks every window before sunset in a house 2 states away. On August 18, 2011, in the Irish wilderness of Missouri's Ozark Highlands, 3 people died in 72 hours, and a 4th would die 9 years later from a heart failure no doctor could explain. The first autopsy made no sense. A healthy man of 24 had no rupture, no clot, no poison, no drowning, no heat stroke, no electrical damage. His heart had stopped anyway. The official explanation was misadventure in remote terrain, then animal interference after death, and that was wrong from the first page. Rangers found boots set side by side on wet stone. They found tracks that ended in the middle of a stride. They found a radio with a full battery that would not transmit until dawn. What comes next is the account. My name is Jonah Redbird. I was 38 years old that summer. I worked as a cultural resources field specialist under contract with the Osage Nation, and I had been doing that work for 11 years, most of it in Missouri and Oklahoma, most of it on ground where our old maps and federal maps do not agree. My mother's family came out of the Osage River country before I was born. My grandfather taught me how certain ridges carry sound, how cold air settles in a hollow before daylight, how some water in the Ozarks disappears under stone and travels where nobody on the surface can follow it. I had spent long weeks in fire roads, cave buffers, burial surveys, and storm damage assessments. I had slept in floodplains, on glades, under aluminum trailers, and once in the back of a truck while feral hogs moved through cane 10 yards away. Nothing had ever frightened me. That changed at Irish Wilderness. We were 5 going in. Dana Kessler was 49, district ranger, 22 years in federal service, exact in speech, one of those people who folded a map along the original seams every time. She had the most experience and the most authority, which mattered because she had signed off on the route and the overnight plan herself. Maren Shaw was 41, wildlife biologist, 14 years in the field, patient, the kind of woman who could stand still for 20 minutes and tell you which bird had stopped calling first. Eli Harjo was 34, volunteer wilderness medic, 8 years on search teams, soft voice, quick hands, always the first to hand over water before anyone said they needed it. Leo Mercer was 24, contract documentarian, 9 months into backcountry work, eager, good with lenses, bad at pretending he was not cold. Then there was me, notebook, recorder, permit binder, old names for places that no longer had signs. The assignment sounded plain when Dana pitched it. A string of small reports had piled up over 2 months around the Whites Creek corridor and the southern trail spurs toward the 11 Point. 2 overdue hikers had turned up safe. 1 local man had not. A pair of teenagers had come out after dark missing boots, packs, and most of their memory of 6 hours. There had also been repeated entries about odd finds near sinkholes and springs. Shirts folded on rock, 1 deer carcass with no clear trauma, and several witness statements about the woods going silent all at once. Dana wanted the cave closure boundary checked, older survey markers documented, and any informal camps photographed before hunting season traffic picked up. That was the paper reason. The real reason came out in the truck when Leo fell asleep. Dana told me there had been 3 incidents in 6 years that never sat right with her. Bodies where the scene looked staged. Reports revised after they reached Jefferson City. She said, "I want someone on this trip who knows how memory sits on land." I told her that was not a scientific category. She said, "No, it isn't. Irish Wilderness is a real place, and if you have never walked it, the map lies by being accurate. It shows trails, drainages, contour lines, springs, and access points, but it cannot show what the ground does to distance. The forest closes over you in oak and hickory. The hollows twist. Limestone underneath everything has been eaten by water for longer than any border has existed there. Sinkholes open under leaf litter. Streams vanish into rock, then appear again farther downslope, cold and clear as if they have remembered where daylight is. Whites Creek runs year-round, and the bluffs above the 11 Point hold shadow long after sunset. From where we made our first camp, the nearest trailhead was 6.8 miles north. The nearest staffed office was 27 miles away by road. After dark, help was farther than numbers. The first sign came at 3:16 in the afternoon, and Marin noticed it before anyone else. Cicadas cut off mid-drone. Not faded. Cut off. Frogs in a wet seam below us cut off too. The silence hit with shape to it like a room door closing. Leo lowered his camera and smiled the way people do when they think a sound recordist has asked for quiet. Then we saw the shirt. It was a plaid flannel, men's medium, washed and sun-bleached, laid flat on a slab of dolomite beside a seep. Sleeves crossed over the chest. Buttons done. No peck. No blood. No drag marks. Dana had us fan out in pairs. 40 yards away I found bare footprints in damp chert gravel. The left print was deep. The right print was shallow. The stride said the person had been hurrying. Then the track stopped. Not at brush. Not at water. On open ground. One print, then another, then half a right toe and nothing beyond it. Marin came over, crouched, and used the back of her hand to test the mud. She said no rain had hit it since dawn. Eli said maybe someone had stepped onto stone. There was no stone in reach. Leo filmed the prints and asked if sinkhole collapse could take a person straight down. Dana looked at the ground, then at the trees. Not without breaking the surface, she said. At 5:40 we found the boots. They were men's hiking boots, brown leather, wet laces neatly tucked in, standing together at the lip of a narrow sink no wider than a livestock trough. They were pointed toward the hole as if their owner had stepped out of them on purpose. The sink itself was only 7 feet deep before it pinched into black rock. Eli knelt with his light. The beam struck damp stone, roots, and a scatter of feathers too pale to be crow and too long to be turkey. Leo leaned in for a close shot. Dana pulled him back by the shoulder and told him not to get stupid for footage. That was the first time the silence dropped around us, and it would happen before every attack after that. The rule became plain only when it was too late to be useful. We made camp on a rise above White's Creek because Dana did not want anyone sleeping beside open karst. We had 2 4-person tents, 1 small tarp kitchen, 5 headlamps, 6 chem lights, a flare gun with 4 cartridges, 2 radios, 1 satellite beacon, 1 shotgun for snakes and feral dogs, and enough batteries for 3 days if Leo stopped reviewing footage every 10 minutes. He laughed when Dana counted gear aloud. She said, "You laugh now so you count later." He stopped. That night the radios took turns dying in our hands. Not drained. Just blank. At 11:12 the first human voice came from downhill. It said Dana's name. Not shouted. Not far away. Right outside the light. Dana stood up so fast her chair tipped. Eli said he had heard it too. Marin said it sounded wrong, as if each syllable had been practiced apart and then pushed together. Dana called back once before I could stop her. "Who's there?" Nothing answered. Then from farther left, from a place where nobody could have moved that fast through Greenbrier and Deadfall, the voice said Leo's name. He took 2 steps toward it. Dana caught his pack strap. The woods had gone silent again. Not one insect. Not one frog. Even the creek sounded distant, as if the hollow had deepened around us. I remembered something my grandfather had told me when I was 10 and trying to be brave around an old burial ridge near Bagnall Dam. If the night calls you by name from a place where you did not leave a friend, keep your mouth closed and your eyes low. He had not explained why. At camp, with Leo straining forward and Dana still gripping him, I said, "Nobody answers now. Nobody leaves the light." We lasted until 1:03 before the second distraction worked. Something hit the tarp line from the opposite side of camp. Not heavy enough to be a bear. Precise. One knot pulled loose, then another. While Dana and Eli turned to secure it, Leo saw movement near the Sinkside Trail and went after it with his camera. I was 10 feet behind him when I heard him say, very softly, "There you are." His light swept once across a cedar trunk. I saw a shape pass between 2 trees above us, not running on the ground but crossing from dark to dark with no sound of landing. Not feathers, not fur. A broad movement, folded and then not folded, like wet canvas pulled through branches. Leo stumbled backward, dropped the camera, and hit the chert bar by the creek. I reached the spot in seconds. The camera was there. 1 knee print, 2 heel digs, Then his tracks went 3 strides into the gravel and stopped mid-run. No slide, no scuff, no water entry, just absence. On a flat stone beside the bar, his socks lay rolled together inside out. We searched until daylight because nobody could admit what the ground was showing us. At 6:20 we found Leo in a shallow pool 50 yards upstream where there was no current strong enough to move a body. He had no tearing injuries, no broken neck. His eyes were open. His mouth was closed. Eli checked anyway long after the rest of us knew. Dana stood with both fists against her hips and did not move for a full minute. Marin said the same sentence twice, quiet, as if reading it from paper. He can't be here. He can't be here. When Eli finally looked up, he said the skin under Leo's jaw was cold in a way the rest of him was not. That was the first death. The second day should have been retreat. Dana knew it. I knew it. But the radios came back at dawn as if nothing had happened. The satellite beacon flashed error code after error code, and Dana made the decision that gets judged cleanly only by people who were not there. She said carrying Leo out on foot through that ground without a functioning beacon would slow us enough to lose another night. She said we would move to higher ground, secure the body, and hike at first light on day 3. Marin argued. Eli did not. I said the place had started choosing and we were already late. Dana looked at me a long time and asked what that meant. I told her I did not know yet. By afternoon we had Leo wrapped, documented, and moved under shade near camp. Dana found old blazes on a white oak, nearly swallowed by bark, leading toward a disused spur I did not see on the current map. We followed them to a shelf above a collapsed opening. At the back of the shelf sat a rusted coffee tin, a 1974 field notebook sealed in wax paper, and a strip of red cloth tied to a root. The notebook belonged to a Forest Service employee named Garrett M. Suter. The entries were short. August 9th. No birds after dusk. August 10th. Finn heard his mother calling below the sink. August 11th. Found his shirt folded on stone. August 12th. Do not answer the wing over the trees. August 13th. It takes the breath first. Heart after. The last page had no date. It said, I think it knows who has been told about it. Marin read that page twice. Dana said, we're leaving now. That was when the silence fell again. Came so hard my ears rang. Eli turned toward the shelf edge. Dana turned toward camp. The first strike was for authority, just as if it understood structure. Dana had one hand on the notebook when something moved over us and the light changed. She fired upward with the shotgun. The blast hit stone and showered chips down the slope. I caught a smell like wet mineral and old feathers left under a bridge. Dana went backward without a cry. One moment she was braced. The next she was gone over the edge of the collapse, dropping 15 feet into brush and broken rock. We scrambled down to her. Her chest was moving in short, clipped pulls. No puncture wound I could find. No snapped spine. But she kept clawing at the center of her sternum, as if something inside it was being tightened by hand. She died before Eli could get the monitor leads placed. Her face stayed almost calm. That was worse than if it had shown pain. Eli looked at me and said, this is not a fall. He was right. The shelf had not made her heart stop in under a minute. That night we did not make camp so much as crouch inside it. Dana lay zipped in her bag. Leo lay beside her. We had 3 headlamps left, 2 radios, 3 flares, 1 working GPS unit that kept losing satellites under clear sky, and Marin's notebook where she had started writing times because none of us trusted memory anymore. 8:14 p.m. Silence. 8:15 3 knocks on the far side of camp. 8:16 voice resembling Leo. 8:19 silence lifted. 9:02 smell of wet limestone. 9:03 flare used. At 10:27 something circled above the tarp. I could not see a body. I saw pressure in the darkness, a moving width blotting out stars where there should have been gaps. Each pass came without wing beat sound. Eli held a chem light in one hand and the shotgun in the other. Marin kept whispering distances to the trailhead as if numbers could build a wall. No one slept. Near midnight Eli asked me very quietly what my grandfather had said in full. I told him. Do not answer when it speaks in a human voice. Do not run toward open ground. If the woods go empty, put tobacco or breath to stone and keep your eyes down. Let it pass over you as if you are already claimed by older names. Eli took that in without blinking. He said, "You brought tobacco." I nodded. He laughed once, not from humor but from fatigue. "Good," he said. "One of us planned for Missouri." Day 3 began with false calm. Birds returned. Frogs returned. Sun touched the creek and made everything look ordinary enough to insult us. We broke camp fast. Dana and Leo would stay for recovery. The living had to move. We made less than a mile before the last attack. It happened at the crossing below Bliss Spring where the valley narrows and stone walls lift on both sides. Marin was ahead with the GPS. Eli was behind me. The silence hit. No warning anymore. Just the instant subtraction of life from sound. Then Dana's voice came from upstream. Not memory. Not imagination. Dana's exact clip tone saying, "Jonah, over here." Marin stopped dead. Eli said, "Eyes down." We all obeyed for 1 second. Then a pack we had left clipped to Eli's shoulder strap jerked backward hard enough to pull him off balance. Deliberate. A distraction. While he fought the strap, something crossed the creek above us. I looked up once. I wish I had not. I saw the underside only in fragments. A narrow trunk. Joints rising too high from either side. A span wider than the creek gap. Not feathered in any way I knew. The surface dull and creased like soaked hide. Beneath it, where a head should have resolved into shape, there was only a bent darkness and 2 moments of reflected creek light that were not eyes exactly but took their place. It did not rush. It selected. That is the word I still use. It went for Eli. He fired and missed because it was already somewhere else. Not invisible. Just wrong about distance. 1 instant above the sycamore roots, the next against the bluff face 8 feet higher, as if rock and air were part of the same path to it. Eli yelled for us to move. Marin froze. I grabbed her sleeve and dragged her behind a boulder. Eli backed toward us, then stopped himself and turned away on purpose, shouting, making noise, drawing it off. Beloved people do that. They make a decision before the others understand one has been offered. He ran toward open gravel. I shouted for him not to. The thing dropped once. I heard no impact. Eli got 3 more strides. On the 4th, his body folded forward as if every cord in him had been cut. When I reached him, his skin was gray around the mouth, his pulse skipping under my fingers like it could not agree to stay. He looked at me very clear and said, "Do the stone." Those were his last words. Marin was making a sound I still hear in plumbing and air ducts. I pulled the tobacco packet from my chest pocket. It had been given to me by my aunt before I drove north. Buckskin, for tied corners, bitter smell. We crouched by the boulder while the silence deepened until my own breath sounded rude. I poured the tobacco onto the flat top of the stone. My hands shook so badly half of it fell on my boots. I kept my eyes down. I did not answer when my mother's voice came from the creek. I did not answer when Leo laughed behind me. I did not answer when Eli told me to look up because it was leaving. Marin clamped both hands over her ears and pressed her face to her knees. Then the air changed. A shadow passed over us without wind. The tobacco on the stone lifted in a thin spiral straight upward. Not sideways. Something moved close enough that I felt cold through my shirt. A cold with no moisture in it, like cellar air from a door that had just opened. There was a click above us, not beak, not claw, more like stone tapping stone. It lingered, choosing. I understood then what Garrett Suter had meant. Takes the breath first, heart after. Not flesh, not blood. The body only fails when the taking is done. I said nothing. I looked at the grain of the rock until it blurred. After a time I could not measure, the forest gave one sound back to us. A single cicada, then another. Then the creek resumed its old place in the world. Eli was dead. Marin and I were alive. We walked out by daylight with no more trouble, which was its own message. We reached Camp 5 afternoon and found the radios working, my phone searching for service, and 2 county deputies who looked at us the way people look at the edge of a story they do not want. Recovery teams went back in. The report that came out said Leo Mercer likely drowned after disorientation near water. Wrong. There was no water path to where he vanished. It said Dana Kessler died from injuries consistent with a fall. Wrong. The medical examiner noted only minor external trauma and an acute cardiac event with no sufficient cause. It said Eli Harjo collapsed during evacuation from stress and exertion. Wrong. His death happened before we moved him in mild terrain, after a drop in temperature no weather station recorded. The report omitted the boots. It omitted the folded shirt. It omitted the tracks ending in open gravel. It omitted the 1974 notebook, which vanished from evidence inside 2 weeks. I began looking backward because forward had stopped making sense. In county archives and agency boxes, I found summer entries from 1974, 1989, 2002, and 2008 spread across 3 jurisdictions and 2 naming systems for the same hills. Different victims. Same details. Clothing placed with care. Witnesses hearing a family voice from the wrong direction. A stop in animal sound before loss. One survivor in 1989 wrote, "I lived because I kept my face to the ground and let it pass." He died in 1997 while washing dishes. Cause: heart failure at 46 with clear coronary arteries. Garrett Suter, the man from the notebook, lived out of state after 1974 and died in 1981. Cause: unexplained cardiac arrest at 38. I attended Marin Shaw's funeral in 2020. She was 50. She died alone at her kitchen table in Springfield with both doors locked and her purse still on her shoulder. The doctor used the same phrase, cardiac failure of uncertain origin. Before Marin died, we met one last time in a diner off Highway 60. She brought me an envelope she had kept hidden in a flour tin. Inside was the last page from Garrett's notebook, the page missing from the copy I made for myself. On the back he had written one line in pencil. Osage man told me the old name is Neaxcahi, the one that follows the breath. Do not let it hear you claim yourself. That wording came from a prayer elder in my family too, though he translated it a little differently for me. The one that keeps what it calls. He had also told me the rule that saved me. When the wood's empty and the voice comes wearing someone you love, you lower your eyes, you give tobacco to stone, and you refuse your own name. The Irish wilderness is still open to the public today. People backpack there, hunt there, float the 11-point, photograph springs, and come home with blisters, wet socks, and stories about how clean the water looked under the bluffs. Most of them have a normal, pleasant trip. Most of them never hear anything but owls, frogs, and their own friends moving through camp. But there are nights in late August, after a day of heat and a fast drop in pressure, when the katydids cut off all at once and the air coming out of the sinkholes turns cold before the sun is fully down. On those nights, cases that should fit together stay separate because each county writes them a little differently. Each family protects itself with a different lie, and every agency has a reason to call distance and darkness the cause. Nobody ever connects the cases. The pattern stays hidden by paperwork and by shame. If you ever walk those trails and the forest goes silent in one clean stroke, do not answer the first voice that uses your name. Do not run toward open ground. Keep your eyes down. Put something living or once living on stone and wait. I survived because I kept my eyes down and did not answer when it used my name. That is the part that keeps me awake at night.